The hall was filled with whispers. The bride, Aisha, sat silently in her wheelchair, her trembling hands gripping the bouquet so tight that a few petals fell to the ground. The groom's mother glared. "My son can't marry this," she hissed loudly enough for everyone to hear. The groom, embarrassed, mumbled something and quietly walked away, leaving Aisha frozen in disbelief. Her heart broke again, not because she hadn't expected rejection, but because this time she had dared to hope that someone would see her soul, not her wheelchair. As guests began to leave, one man stayed behind, a tall, kind-eyed single father named Daniel, who had only come to the wedding as a guest of the groom's cousin. Beside him stood his little daughter, Emma, holding a small flower. Emma tugged his hand. "Daddy, she's crying," she whispered, pointing at Aisha. Daniel walked over. "Miss, are you okay?" he asked softly. Aisha wiped her tears. "I'm fine. Just another chapter of rejection. It's not your problem." But Emma stepped forward and placed her tiny flower on Aisha's lap. "You look like a princess," she said with a smile. Aisha's eyes welled up again. That small act of innocence cracked something open in Daniel's heart. He saw not a disabled woman, but someone brave, beautiful, and undeserving of pain. Days passed, but Daniel couldn't get her out of his mind. He searched, found out where she worked, an art studio she managed from home, and brought Emma with him one day. "Emma insists we needed a painting for her room," he said. Trying to sound casual, Aisha smiled faintly, showing them her art, vibrant, full of life and emotion. Daniel watched her hands move across the canvas, steady and confident despite her condition. "She paints like she can walk through colors," Emma whispered. Weeks turned into months. Daniel and Aisha grew close. Coffee conversations turned into shared dinners. Laughter replaced silence. But one night Aisha broke down. "Daniel, you don't have to do this. I can't walk. I can't give you a normal life." Daniel knelt beside her. "Normal, Aisha, you gave me back hope. My wife died 3 years ago, and since then I forgot what love even looked like. Until you." He looked into her eyes. "You're not broken. You're complete. You taught me that love doesn't need legs to stand. It needs heart." Tears streamed down her cheeks. "Daniel." He smiled and reached for her hand. "Marry me, Aisha. Let's show the world what love really looks like." The news spread fast. People whispered again, but this time differently. Some mocked, others doubted. Yet on the wedding day, Daniel stood proudly at the altar as Aisha rolled down the aisle, wearing a white gown that shimmered like starlight. Emma ran up to her with flowers and whispered, "Told you you're a princess." When the priest said, "Do you take her as your wife?" Daniel looked straight at her and said, "I already do." The applause was thunderous. Tears filled the eyes of even those who once mocked. Months later, Aisha's artwork became famous, not just for its beauty, but for the message she wrote beneath every painting. Love isn't about walking together. It's about never leaving each other behind. And in the family portrait that hung in their living room, Aisha sat smiling, Daniel's hand resting on hers, Emma between them. Happiness radiated louder than any words ever could. Because sometimes the people the world rejects become the ones who teach it what love truly means. Years passed. Their little home that once echoed with quiet now rang with laughter. Aisha's art studio had grown. Paintings of hope and resilience covered every wall. Daniel had expanded his small repair business, and together they created a life that was simple but overflowing with peace. Every morning, Daniel brewed coffee while Emma sat beside Aisha, learning how to paint. "Look, Mommy!" Emma said one day, proudly holding up her colorful sketch. Aisha smiled warmly. "That's beautiful, sweetheart. You've got your daddy's focus and my heart," Emma giggled. "And I've got both your love." Their life wasn't perfect. Aisha still faced challenges. There were nights she'd struggle alone in her wheelchair, sometimes falling, sometimes crying quietly. But every time she did, Daniel was there, lifting her gently, whispering, "You're not alone. Not anymore." One afternoon, Aisha received an unexpected letter. It was from the groom who'd left her years ago, the man who had humiliated her. The letter read, "Aisha, I saw your art in a gallery. I wanted to apologize. I realize now what I lost that day. You're everything I wasn't strong enough to see." Aisha folded the letter calmly and placed it in her drawer. When Daniel noticed, he asked softly, "Everything okay?" She nodded. "It's from my past, but my future is right here with you." Daniel smiled and kissed her forehead. "That's all that matters." A few months later, an art exhibition invited Aisha to speak publicly about her journey. She was nervous. Crowds made her anxious, and so did the thought of being seen as the woman in the wheelchair. Before her speech, Daniel squeezed her hand. "Just be you. The world needs your heart, not your legs." When she rolled onto the stage, the hall went silent. Cameras flashed. People whispered, but Aisha spoke with steady grace. "I once believed love was about perfection. Then life took my strength, my movement, my dreams. I thought I'd lost everything, until love found me, not to fix me, but to see me, to tell me I was already whole." Tears filled the audience's eyes. When she finished, the applause was endless. Reporters wrote about the artist who painted hope, and her words spread online like wildfire. After the event, Daniel wrapped his arms around her. "You were amazing," he whispered. Aisha looked up, eyes shimmering. "You made me believe I could be." That night, back home, they sat outside under the stars. Emma was asleep inside, her drawings scattered all over the table. Daniel looked at the sky. "You know, sometimes I still think how lucky I am. If that groom hadn't walked away, I would have never met you." Aisha smiled gently. "And if life hadn't broken me, I might have never found the strength to love this deeply." He touched her cheek. "You didn't lose anything, Aisha. You gained everything that mattered." Years later, when Emma grew up, she told her friends, "My mom doesn't walk with her legs. She walks with her heart, and she taught my dad how to fly." And in that little home, surrounded by paintings of love, loss, and rebirth, the story of Aisha and Daniel became a quiet legend, proof that sometimes the most beautiful love stories begin where others end, because true love doesn't look for perfection, it finds it in imperfection. As the years went by, Aisha and Daniel's story became something the whole town quietly admired. People would wave at them as they passed by, the woman with the wheelchair who painted hope, and the man who saw beyond what others couldn't. One winter evening, a light snow began to fall. Aisha sat by the window, sketching while Emma, now 12, helped Daniel decorate their small Christmas tree. "Daddy," Emma said, hanging an ornament, "do you think Mommy's paintings will go to the big museum one day?" Daniel smiled. "I think they already belong there. They're painted with love, and that's the rarest art of all." Aisha looked up, blushing softly. "You always know what to say, don't you?" He walked over and kissed her forehead. "I just say what's true." That night, as they shared dinner, there was a knock at the door. When Daniel opened it, he froze. Standing there was an older couple, Aisha's parents. They had disowned her years ago, ashamed of her disability, believing no man would ever love her. But time changes hearts. Her mother's eyes filled with tears. "Aisha, I saw your speech online. I'm sorry, my child. We were wrong." Aisha's hands trembled, the old pains surfacing, but then she looked at Daniel and Emma, her strength returning. "Come in," she said softly. "There's room at the table." That night they ate together for the first time in years. Her father, once stern and distant, looked at Daniel and said, "You're the kind of man I prayed my daughter would meet." "Thank you for giving her what we couldn't." Daniel shook his head humbly. "Sir, she gave me everything. I just held on." Tears glistened in her parents' eyes as they watched their daughter laugh again, free, whole, loved. As midnight neared, Emma handed her grandmother a small gift, a tiny painting of a heart surrounded by cracks filled with gold. "It's called kintsugi," Emma said shyly. "Mom says it means when something's broken and you fix it with gold, it becomes more beautiful." Her grandmother hugged her tightly. "It does, my dear. It truly does." That night, when everyone was asleep, Aisha and Daniel stood by the window watching the snow fall quietly over the streetlights.